Welcome to another Mock Draft Tuesday. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. We got a fun show for you tonight. Going to go over a half PPR mock draft, talk a little Cam Akers, and of course get to know our guests that are joining us tonight. We got a fantastic panel with us. We also have another one of our guests, our featured guests, joining us in our mock draft, and you can follow along with the mock draft here with our buddy Ben Trager showing us what to do. But let's get this. I'll introduce our guests. As you see, we miss Adam Mazer already with the hosting fumbles that I'm going to deal with tonight. But we got Steph Smallls here from FTN Fantasy. We got Tera Roberts from the Fantasy Vipers and Samantha Previte from the Action Network. Ladies, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us here. And let's have some fun with this draft. We're also going to take your questions. And, of course, give us some likes. We get to 100 likes. We're going to let somebody watching the live stream get a chance to participate in our next mock draft. So you like this show, you get a chance to draft with us and get to experience some of the fun that we're going to deal with this draft tonight. So the draft has already started. Like I said, it's a half PPR mock draft. First pick from RJ White, one of our guys here at CBS Sports. Starts off with Christian McCaffrey. We got Jacob Gibbs from Sportsline. You know him. He's on the clock with the second pick. The draft order is Rob Thomas, who is our other guest joining us in the mock draft. He's our Facebook moderator for our CBS Sports Fantasy Draft Facebook page. He's up third. Andrew Ballmer is fourth. Samantha, you got the fifth pick. Tera, you got the sixth pick. Steph, you got the seventh pick. Chris Towers is eighth. I got the ninth pick. Dave Richard is number 10. Dan Schneider is number 11. And Jack Capitorto, one of our producers on CBS Sports HQ, is number 12. So goes Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, and then Ballmer is on the clock. So, Samantha, you're going to be up next. What are you thinking with that fifth spot?
Well, I don't want to give away all of my strategy here, but I am hoping that Derrick Henry falls to me. I am in. All right, there we go. Definitely taking. I'm definitely on the more robust RB side. So let's see. Should I snipe Saquon Barkley from staff? I'm having trouble. Sorry.
If you need some help, let me know. I'm happy to help you out.
I've been trying to drag these guys into my queue, and they're not.
And there you go. The CBS Sports technology working well already.
Sorry. That's so awkward. I had Henry in my queue, and now I'm having a little bit of trouble dragging.
Who do you want to take? Barkley?
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you Barkley. So.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll work for you next time around.
Very rude, but I will.
All right, Tera, you're on the clock now. So what are you thinking with that sixth spot?
Ooh, this is tough. So for some reason, lately, I've been drafting exclusively in the 11th and 12th spot. So I never get a chance to get any running backs in 1 QB leagues, any of the top running backs in 1 QB leagues. So, I think that my heart kind of wants to take Aaron Jones. I am a Green Bay Packers fan, so I'm a Green Bay Packers homer, but I actually really do like Austin Eckler this season. And I hope this doesn't kind of mess me up here because I really am a huge Keenan Allen fan, and he's someone that I love to grab. But I'm going to grab Austin Eckler. If I can figure out how to press the draft button, maybe. I'm a little technology challenged.
That's okay. I'm sure for you guys, maybe it's first time drafting on CBS. So anytime you go on a new platform, sometimes it's a little bit challenging. All right. So Samantha, you took Saquon Barkley. Tera, you took Austin Eckler. Steph, you're on the clock. Obviously, you got Saquon stolen from you. So what are you doing with that pick in number 10?
I took Jonathan Taylor. I honestly did think that Tera was going to take him from me, but I'm all in on Jonathan Taylor. I think there's no reason that he can't put up the same amount of numbers that he did last year.
Any concern with Marlon Mack coming back? And we'll talk a little bit about Mack because it ties into Cam Akers, because Mack coming back from that Achilles injury, which unfortunately Cam Akers suffered. So any concern with Mack, with Nyheim Hines and some of the other running backs taking some work away from Taylor this year?
No, I'm not. I'm just not concerned. I think that Marlon, it seems like they're going to be very cautious with how they ease him in after that type of injury. And like you said, we'll talk about it, but it's a very difficult injury to come back from. And the explosiveness rarely ever comes back at the level that we like to see. So I'm still all in on this Jonathan Taylor.
I like the pick. I took Ezekiel Elliott at 9 after Chris Towers took Travis Kelce at 8. Aaron Jones. Tera, who you mentioned you were considering with the 6th spot. Dave Richard took him at number 10. But let's get into the story of the day. Obviously, unfortunate news. Cam Akers suffering the ruptured Achilles. Going to miss the entire 2021 campaign. We'll start. We'll just go based on the way that people are viewing you. So Tera, you get the first word. Steph, you can follow, and Samantha, you can follow after that. Just your thoughts on the Rams backfield now that there is no Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson stepping into that starting role, and we'll find out who's going to be the number 2 running back for the Rams. So Tera, kick us off. What do you think about the news today and the unfortunate situation?
So this one was a little heartbreaking for me because I know a lot of people were a little skeptical of how Akers was going to do this season, but I was really huge on Cam Akers. I thought that it was going to be a fantastic year for him. You know, my feeling was that McVay really wanted to get back to that offense that he had with Todd Gurley, where they were just so incredibly potent, both with the pass game, so getting Stafford for that, and then hitting hard and getting away from kind of that, you know, not a running back by committee, but going with the hot hand like he did last year, bouncing between Akers when he was healthy and Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown. But I'm a little on the side of being very supportive of Darrell Henderson. A lot of people look at him as maybe not as Sean McVay maybe not having a lot of faith in him just because they went and drafted Akers. But I think that they really just wanted to get Akers because they really thought that he was just a very special talent, not that they really didn't think that Henderson was capable of being a guy in a 3-down back. If you look at last year, he had multiple games where he had 15 to 20 carries, and he did really well in those games. So I think he's more than capable of handling that workload. I think they'll stick with that as opposed to going out and maybe trading for someone. And that's my anticipation, that maybe they'll add someone for depth, like maybe an Adrian Peterson. But I think they're going to let Darrell Henderson take the lead.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think, too, like Stafford has such historically a great relationship with running backs and having them flourish, you know, in the league. So I'm really not concerned. You have a good O-line. You have a great quarterback that is Stafford. And I think that Henderson showed in the games that he did play, 6 or whatever it was, that he's very capable of being the RB1 over there. So I actually am, and I was almost more skeptical of Akers, and maybe it's just now that everyone's talking about it, I'm doing more research, but I'm pretty in on Henderson. I mean, it's not outlandish to say he'll finish within the top 20.
Yeah, I just think that while, you know, Cam Akers' RB1 season was short-lived, it's definitely a bummer. Darrell Henderson, I'm pretty high on. I would say that his ceiling is going to be lower than I think Cam Akers' ceiling was, even with less competition out of the backfield. That said, I don't know that there's anyone in that backfield that's going to give him too much competition unless they sign someone. I think it would be interesting to see if there would be a Todd Gurley reunion, though I'm not sure how that relationship ended and if that's something that the Rams do want to pursue, but it does feel like they're going to have to find someone to kind of backfill a little bit of that position, because they've got Jake Funk, who's a 7th rounder from this year's draft, and then a 7th rounder from last year's draft, and an undrafted free agent. So it's going to be pretty rough in case Darrell Henderson gets hurt.
We had an interesting conversation on our show today. Adam Azer and I did an emergency podcast. We talked about the dynasty value for both those guys moving forward, you know, more so I think for the 2022 season when Akers hopefully comes back. And, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see how dynasty league managers approach Cam Akers, because there's just not a good track record for running backs coming back from an Achilles injury. You know, Marlon Mack will hopefully bounce back and be a good running back, but, you know, you've seen, you know, older running backs like Arian Foster basically end his career. You've seen some young running backs, Mikel Shore didn't come back from the same after, you know, good, you know, start to his career, but it's a devastating injury. You know, everybody's going to look at Kevin Durant and say, hopefully he's, you know, that type of, you know, player, that type of athlete, but different sport, different situations, different circumstances. So I think we're all rooting for Cam Akers to come back at 100%, but Darrell Henderson's value is on the rise. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes in this draft. All right, so we're through the second round so far. You guys each made your second round picks. Let's recap the draft so far. Ben, if you want to show the draft board from round 1, just so we can give everybody an update on how that looks so far. So the first round went, we got you through the first 10 picks, but I'll recap that. So it's Christian McCaffrey, number 1, Dalvin Cook, 2, Alvin Kamara, number 3, Derrick Henry, unfortunately, right in front of Samantha at number 4. Samantha took Saquon Barkley, 5. Tera, you got Austin Eckler at 6. Steph, you got Jonathan Taylor at 7. Travis Kelce went 8. I took Ezekiel Elliott at 9. Aaron Jones went 10, Tyreek Hill 11, and Najee Harris went at number 12. Any surprises there for you guys? Steph, I'll start with you. Anything stand out that you think, maybe a guy fell a little too soon, or somebody that shouldn't have been drafted in the first round? I think we might have lost Steph's audio there, unless I can't hear her.
No,
Can
I
you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, good. I was saying that I love that Najee Harris pick. I think that he is very capable of filling the shoes to be drafted that high. I'm pretty high on Najee Harris this season. I think that they're going to find a way to get him involved. His job is very written out. We know what we're going to get there, and I like that. I like the certainty, but we'll see what he does.
Our producer, Jack Capitorto, who produces our Fantasy Football Today show on CBS Sports HQ, going to be very happy to hear you say that about his pick at number 12. Tera, you mentioned Aaron Jones, that you considered him with the number 5 selection. Number 6 selection. Any concern, though, with the Aaron Rodgers scenario of him not playing and what that can mean for this entire offense? Davante Adams fell to the second round in this mock draft, which I think is probably going to be the case with a lot of leagues looking at Davante Adams right now. But with Aaron Jones, you seem still pretty confident. Is that Aaron Rodgers expecting to be there, or you don't really care? You're going to take Aaron Jones in the first round?
Well, I fully expect Aaron Rodgers to be there. In my opinion, I know some people still think that it's a possibility that he'll still be traded before the season actually starts, but I just don't think that that's a reality when you think about just from a business perspective. It makes more sense to wait until the off season for after the season coming up. But in my opinion, he's going to play, and even if he doesn't, I think the utilization will change a little. Like maybe they'll give him more play specifically on the ground, and he might have an increase in volume of carries and yardage. So I think it'll balance out. If Aaron doesn't play, I think he'll still get his points. It'll just be in a slightly different way.
Very fascinating situation going on in Green Bay, and we know the news from Adam Schefter today about him turning down what seemed to be a very lucrative contract. So hopefully we do get Aaron Rodgers playing for the 2021 campaign and building off of his MVP season from a year ago. Let's take a look at round 2. Starts off with Joe Mixon, then Davante Adams goes 14th overall. Nick Chubb goes 15th overall. I took Antonio Gibson at 16. Stephon Diggs, George Kittle to Steph at 18. David Montgomery goes 19. And then Samantha, you took Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 20. I actually considered Edwards-Helaire where I took Antonio Gibson. He's another guy that's very polarizing, clearly, with what happened a year ago in his rookie campaign. Got off to a strong start. Obviously, there was a lot of hype coming into the season after he was the first running back drafted. In the NFL draft, your expectations for CEH in year 2 are what?
Yeah, there's definitely that post-hype sleeper appeal at this point, because I think I wanted nothing to do with him last year at his ADP. He was going top 5 in redraft in some leagues, and I thought that was just a little too bullish on a rookie. And, I think we act like he had this terrible, terrible season. He really didn't. And obviously, none of us in the fantasy community liked what Andy Reid was doing with Le'Veon Bell, and with Bell gone, I think he has a real chance to become a true RB1. We've seen that happen in the Chiefs offense before, and just being a part of that Chiefs offense really boosts his value. I think he has a great talent as every down back, so I'm really excited about him in this year, especially where he's been falling to me in drafts.
Yep, he's offensive line rebuilt in Kansas City, going to be fun for him. No Le'Veon Bell, no significant veteran added aside from Jerick McKinnon, but I don't think anybody's worried about Jerick McKinnon taking CEH off the field. So should be a fun situation to see. So I like that pick at number 20 overall. 21 goes DeAndre Hopkins, Patrick Mahomes at 22, Darren Waller 23, and then the second round rounds out with DeAndre Swift at 24. So we're just getting to the end of the third round. I'm actually on the clock, so I'm going to make a pick, and then we'll catch up round 3. One of my favorite players is available, so I'm going to take him. And I'm surprised, Tera, you passed on Keenan Allen, who was available when you got a chance to pick. So I know you were high on Keenan Allen, but he did not go. Chris Towers took him right in front of me. I'm going to take Terry McLaurin, a player that I'm very excited about. It looks like I'm going to be a Washington football team fan, taking Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin. Steph, what do you think about the Washington football team offense, looking at Ryan Fitzpatrick, now the quarterback, and the 2 top players that they have, the 2 guys that I took on my team, Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin?
Oh my gosh, my audio. It's funny that you say that, because I actually just in a draft just stacked exactly the same, almost from the same draft position. I am all in, on Washington. As far as having Fitz come in there, this team's a gold mine. My only two concerns with this team are Gibson. All of a sudden, we are starting to hear about the toe again. So I don't love that as much. But if he's able to stay healthy, which I think that's very much possible because you have so many options there. And I think it's going to preserve everyone's health a little bit more. And then the only other person is obviously Ryan Fitz. Pat, he has not, he hasn't played that many games in a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to come in and actually step up to the plate. But I'm excited for this team. It kills me as a Giants fan, but everything about this team is very well-rounded. This aside from the Browns, this might be one of the best in the league.
It's gonna be fun. I'm super excited about these two guys. J.D. McKissic talking about getting bulked up, wanting to be the top running back there. He can go stay on the bench. We don't want to see J.D. McKissic, but obviously there's some concern about Curtis Samuel and Dammy Brown had a very strong offseason so far. Logan Thomas is somebody that they're going to be excited about still, but I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will lean on those two guys. At least that's what I'm hoping for this fantasy team that I'm putting together here. Let's catch up on the third round. We had Calvin Ridley start the round, Justin Jefferson, J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf. Tera, you took Michael Thomas. Then Chris Carson to you. Steph, after Samantha, you took D.K. Metcalf at 29 overall. Talk to us about the move you made there, Tera, because like you said, you were high on Keenan Allen, but you took Michael Thomas over him. Is that just an easy one based on what Thomas can do, or was that a little tough for you, knowing that you do have a strong affiliation or affection for Keenan Allen this year?
So for me, so when I took Eckler, I realized I kind of knocked myself out of getting Keenan Allen, which is cool. I'm happy with Michael Thomas, but I made the tough decision that I had right there was between Michael Thomas and Terry McLaurin, because Terry McLaurin is one of my guys that beyond the Packers, I support more than anything, and I try to get him on as many teams as possible. I just think I agree with Steph that it's just such a perfect situation. We've seen him perform at a great level with some questionable quarterbacks, and so I'm really excited to see what he can do with the gunslinger. But to pass up Michael Thomas was a little tough, because I know last season you have to take into consideration that it was just kind of a crazy season, with the injuries, with the odd situation with the fight, with Breeze getting hurt, the switching quarterbacks at Taysom Hill. It was just kind of a wild season for the Saints and in general overall. So when you look at Michael Thomas, I feel like if he's coming into the season healthy, it's just crazy to pass up on somebody who can legitimately be that overall wide receiver one. So I'm optimistic that he's going to be healthy, that the Saints are going to have a great game plan coming in to figure out how they move forward without Drew Brees, and Michael Thomas is going to get back to being Michael Thomas.
Samantha, what do you think about the quarterback situation there in New Orleans? We've heard this week that Taysom Hill could be the guy. Obviously, it's been fun to watch the Jameis Winston workout videos and see what he's doing, throwing the towel around or whatever he's doing in his backyard. Who do you think is going to be the quarterback for the Saints this year?
I'm really, really hoping that it's Jameis. I refuse to and I'm drafting in a way. Sorry, and now I'm on the clock. I'm drafting definitely in a way, assuming that Jameis is going to be the quarterback, because I refuse to accept that Sean Payton, who I think is a genius, an offensive genius, actually thinks that Taysom Hill is the franchise quarterback of the future. So I think that obviously for fantasy, we're really rooting for Jameis, and he is. Just offers a lot more opportunities in terms of scoring for the whole offense.
All right, I didn't mean to ask you a question there while you were on the clock, so I apologize about that. But we'll catch up on the fourth round in a second. Just make sure you guys are hitting that like button. Again, for every 100 likes we get, someone watching this live stream will get to participate in our next mock draft. 100 likes, one fan gets in the mock draft. 200 likes, we get 2 fans in the mock draft. 300 likes, we get 3 fans in the mock draft. And there's our buddy Ben Schrager with the fancy graphic there to back up exactly what I just said. So Ben, feel free to throw up a question every now and then if you want. I'm having a little tough time navigating the chat there, so I'll let you do it since you're better at that than I am. But let's see. We just got through the fourth round, so I want to catch up on all the picks, and we finally saw Darrell Henderson go off the board at 45th overall. So I'll read the fourth round here, and we can sort of see some of the other picks around Darrell Henderson. But the fourth round kicked off with Chris Godwin, Miles Sanders, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. So back-to-back Cowboys wide receivers there. I'll go to the NFC East expert. Steph, what do you think about the Cowboys receiving core? Are you a Cooper fan? Are you a Lamb fan? Do you think those guys can coexist and both be borderline wide receiver ones, knowing that this offense is going to throw the ball a lot?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be, so exciting to get Dak back, right? We saw what he was on pace to do. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. Again, pains me as a Giants fan to say this, but this offense is going to be fast-paced. They're going to be pretty unstoppable. I think that they can coexist. Cooper he did have surgery during this offseason. A little bit worried about him coming back. He struggled during OTA's minicamp. So I want to see that he's, in good health to be part of training camp. But I think CeeDee Lamb, talk about a guy that I've been taking all over the place. He is someone that I think is just going to do phenomenal. We saw what he was able to do with, a little bit of a downgrade in quarterback that he had while Dak was gone. And I think that, the sky is only the limit for him here.
You are on deck.
You must hate my team because it's all NFC East non-Giants. 2 Cowboys.
I know. What are you doing?
You watch the football team numbers. May have to start getting some Giants in there for you.
There's not much to love about the Giants fantasy-wise, so it's okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay, there we go. We got Chris Godwin, Miles Sanders, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp. This is the 4th round. Jamar Chase at 42nd overall to Steph. Terry took Brandon Ayuk. Samantha, you got Mike Evans. Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the White House today, celebrating their Super Bowl championship. Then Darrell Henderson goes at 45th overall, ahead of Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin. So, Tera, what do you think about that spot for Henderson? 45th overall in the 4th round. The running backs, again, that he went ahead of Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin. He went after Miles Sanders. So is that the right spot for people to start to target him?
I think it is because if you're of the opinion that he is going to be the clear RB1 in that offense, and we're talking about an offense that is by all means probably going to be very incredibly potent, I feel like you can't pass that up over some situations where, like a Mike Davis, which is great, he's the clear RB1. There are some questions about if he's going to be able to keep up his strength throughout the entire season or fade like he did last year. I do like Myles Gaskin, so maybe that would have been a tough decision for me because especially in a PPR format, he was actually a very stealthy pass catching back. When you look at the actual amount of games that he played, he was very productive. So I think it's a good spot.
I think it's good.
Jamie,
spot
1
for,
second. I'm going to jump in here.
Sure.
Got some good news. Just hit 100 likes. So anybody right now, leave your Twitter handle in the chat. One of you is going to be our next mock draft. So leave the Twitter handle. If we get to 200, we're giving away another spot. Sorry, Jamie. We get 1,000 likes, 10 fans are in the next mock draft, and we'll have fun. But good job, everybody. Leave that Twitter handle.
Perfectly happy to sit one out. There we go. We got another Giants player going off the board. Terry took Kenny Golladay at 54. So we're into the 5th round here. I didn't want to ask you a question, Samantha, because you're on the clock, so I didn't want to bother you there. So, Tera, you said you're a Packers fan, right? Correct?
I am, yes.
Definitely know you're a Giants fan. Samantha, what team do you root for if you root for any of them?
Yeah, I feel like it's not super known, but I am a Panthers fan. I didn't start watching football until I lived in South Carolina, and I grew up a Yankees fan, so I definitely couldn't. And I grew up in Rhode Island as a Yankees fan, so pick a struggle, right? But I definitely couldn't just become a Patriots fan and be a Yankees fan. So it sort of made sense at the time, and it was the year that Cam Newton won the MVP, so it was an exciting year to be a fan, and that's really what helped me fall in love with football and everything. So yeah, Panthers for sure.
So tell us about the Panthers. New quarterback this year, Sam Darnold stepping in for Teddy Bridgewater. New receiver with Curtis Samuel gone. Terrace Marshall was one of their draft picks. So what do you think about this passing attack, getting McCaffrey back, but DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson? What do you think about the Panthers' fantasy outlook for the season?
It's tough. I think that we don't know what Sam Darnold's potential is at this point. I think he could definitely be the next post-Adam Gase glow-up candidate that, really does improve once he gets out of the kind of toxic Jets system. And I say that as a former New York Post sports writer, but certainly a system that was not conducive towards his development. So I'm hoping that, with some improvements with the O-line that I think the Panthers O-line is going to be better than the Jets was last year. I don't think that's a hot take. He will see fewer ghosts and has so much more talent surrounding him at this point with McCaffrey and receivers. He just, I think, is now set up in a position to thrive. So hopefully it'll be a better situation for fantasy than it was with Teddy Bridgewater.
Do you guys, when you draft in fantasy or give fantasy advice, how much does your bias toward the team that you root for creep in or maybe steer you in a different direction? Because I'll just tell you about myself. For example, I grew up a Dolphins fan, but I covered the team. I was a newspaper guy for many years. And, you sort of taught to leave your fandom behind. And that was sort of ingrained to me when I was a young reporter. So I don't really root for a team anymore. But when you approach it, and I'll let each of you guys, answer. We'll start with you, Tera, and again, just work your way down. How do you treat your fandom when you're giving fantasy advice or drafting your own fantasy teams?
When I'm giving fantasy advice, I try to be as impartial as possible. It's been a little bit difficult this year just because of the Aaron Rodgers situation, because you hear all of this stuff coming out, but you just want to believe as a Packers that it's not going to happen, that he's not going to be out this year. And you're like, okay, well, think towards the future. We're going to work it out. But I try to be unbiased. I really believe, though, in the talent of a lot of the Packers. Obviously, I don't have to advocate for Devontae Adams. I don't have to advocate really for Aaron Rodgers. I do advocate a lot for Aaron Jones because I feel like he is just, possibly the most underrated running back that there is. He's easily a top 10 running back, and he's often treated as if he's not. So I do go to bat for him a lot. In terms of drafting, I personally try not to draft a lot of Packers because I try to, keep the pain to a minimum, in case something goes wrong. I don't want to be double angry about what happens. So unless it's like an incredibly great value, like a lot of times with Aaron Jones, he is someone that I'll get. But outside of that, I try to avoid just so I can be a happier Tera.
So the Giants are probably one of the most aggravating teams, especially for fantasy players. It is very frustrating. So I do try to not let my fandom come through. It obviously does come through sometimes, but I do think there is something to fans and knowing their team very well and how the system is going to play out. But this team, there's not much for me to encourage people to draft on this team. There's about guys that I'm in on, and that's Saquon and Daniel Jones. And other than that, it's kind of a crapshoot right now, and we don't know exactly how this scheme is going to play out. We have all these players coming in that they were able to get in the offseason. Rudolph, even the way that he's going to maybe make an impact there in the red zone if they're able to get to the red zone, and still having Jason Garrett in a really weak O-line. So I don't have much to even encourage anyone to do, but so I think that makes it easier to stay out of it.
Samantha, before you jump in there, let me just ask you, Steph, because some news about Barkley this week, saying that he's going to wait till he's 100%. We saw the ESPN report, saying it could be October. What's your approach on Barkley, and what are you telling people about when to draft Saquon?
Yeah, I think that Saquon's value has definitely gone down because of last year, but they're going to ease him in because he's coming off of an ACL. I mean, we see this every year. Guys come back from an injury and they get eased in. But is 15 touches like they're reporting to be eased in until week 4? Is that really being super? Is that going to affect his value that much? So I'm still in on Saquon. To fade Saquon is crazy to me. He's a fantastic athlete. And I'm excited to have him back because, Daniel Jones says 26 game starts and only 11 have been with Saquon. So we haven't seen anything yet. And I think it's very exciting to get him back.
I'm sorry again to ask you a question while you're on the clock. So I gave you less time. So you got some time to think. All right. So Samantha, the same thing. I know you mentioned you're a Panthers fan. What do you do in terms of giving fantasy advice or drafting around the Panthers?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo what some of the other people said in terms of like knowing your team. And it's kind of like a curse to know them so well that you are more biased towards them, I think, at least from my perspective, because I feel like I see a lot more flaws in the Panthers. And since I started watching them in 2015, it's all been downhill since then, and they haven't been competitive for a while. So I think it's easy to also kind of get in that mentality of like being a little more harsh and critical too, especially when a team is just perpetually not competitive. So I guess Steph can kind of relate there a little bit. Maybe Tera not.
Fingers crossed.
But yeah, I think. And I don't think this is necessarily going to be a year where the Panthers are winning more than 8 games. So another year where I'll probably be a little bit more critical on them.
Oh, have a little bit more optimism. Sam Darnold's going to turn them around. He's going to take them to the promised land this year. Going to make things a lot more fun. for Carolina. So it should be an
Jamie, we got a winner.
Another winner?
We've got a winner. Here it is. Pig Bird Jet Fan.
Pig Bird Jet
next
Fan.
mock.
That was actually my second choice for a Twitter handle. I thought my name would be better, but Pig Bird Jet Fan was definitely on the table. So congratulations. We'll be drafting with Pig Bird Jet Fan in our next mock draft. I'm looking forward to having to put that one in print. All right, so let's catch up on some picks here. We had some backfields that are being drafted. When I say backfields, hopefully the lead running back for these backfields. But Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams, 2 picks for me in rounds 5 and round 6. We have Raheem Mostert coming off the board in this round. But I want to get your guys' take on a couple of those backfield situations there. So for Jacksonville, we know the story, at least following the NFL draft, Urban Meyer saying that he wants to use Etienne in sort of this hybrid role, using him as a receiver, pass catcher, maybe more so than a running back. Samantha, I'll ask you about this one. What do you think about the Jaguars running backs? Who do you think is going to be the best running back in Jacksonville for fantasy this year? Is it going to be Etienne, or is it going to be James Robinson, who was the superstar last year?
I think it's going to be Etienne, but I think it's going to be close, and which is going to just be really, really frustrating for fantasy. Like, we may see Etienne get, 20% more fantasy points in the season or something like that, but that really just means that they're kind of cannibalizing each other. And if you think about it, there are tons of receivers also on that team, and they've got a rookie quarterback. So I think you got to temper expectations in terms of what you're looking at for Etienne or Robinson next year. And it's obviously a shame, because Robinson was such a great story last season and really saved a lot of people's won a lot of people's fantasy leagues. So it is a shame that obviously that backfield has become quite the mess.
Tera, do you think, we see this a lot, and I know, it's kind of I don't know if it's a tired phrase, but a lot of people in the fantasy community saying this could be the next James Robinson. It seems like that was like a once in a generation type thing, where a guy who's undrafted comes out of nowhere. The guy in front of him gets cut essentially with Leonard Fournette, with what happened to him. Are we just all hoping and fingers crossed looking for that type of guy, or is that going to even be something that could happen again certainly for this season, or maybe even in the near future, of a guy just coming out of nowhere like that and being such a fantasy superstar?
I mean, it's really tough. I think the more common situation is getting somebody like a Trace Sermon, who may not be drafted extremely high, or may not be someone who, he's not a first round pick in our rookie drafts, but is someone that fell into the perfect situation, who he can start immediately. And could even work his, in the situation that they really believe in him, but more than likely work his way into a position to be able to start towards maybe the mid-season and have a really good end of the season. But I think I agree with you that it's a little uncommon to find that kind of James Robinson. I like to go with more known commodities, and then maybe you can play the waiver wire and kind of keep your eye out for those special situations. But I think it was more of a 1 in a million opportunity.
You're hearing a lot of, Javian Williams in Atlanta just because of Mike Davis and not having, a proven backfield per se, or at least a guy that you can, sort of hang your hat on and say this is going to be the guy for the entire season because of where Davis came from last year. I think one guy that might fall into this category, again, I don't like to search for these type of players, but maybe Xavier Jones, just now with the situation for the Rams, if in fact Henderson can't, hold up and they don't necessarily go out and sign somebody like we're all thinking they're going to do. He's somebody that was undrafted a year ago, didn't get a chance to play, but could be that backup to Darrell Henderson this year now that Cam Akers is hurt. Steph, give me your thoughts on the Broncos backfield with Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. It seems as if they're going to give Williams the opportunity to win the starting job. How are you sort of handicapping the Denver situation?
Yeah, and I think that Williams will win that. I think that's what's going to come down to. Gordon has shown that I don't know that he can fully be that RB1, especially if Williams is going to get the opportunity. We don't exactly know who is going to be quarterback there. It's part of the Rodgers saga, but I think that fate has slowly dimmered, and I don't think that that's going to end up happening. So we have Teddy and Locke, and I think that, throwing the ball, if Teddy is there, great. But if Locke gets a little bit more of an opportunity, we're going to see them running the ball a lot. So I like the opportunity for Williams. Love what he's able to do on the field. So I'm pretty in on Williams, and I think Gordon's time is started to pass us.
Yep, and he basically needed Philip Lindsay to be hurt last year, missing time for him to have some of his better performances, which is not a huge surprise. The backup missing time helping the starter, but Melvin Gordon seemed to struggle a little bit in Denver in his first season there. And as you said, the quarterback situation did not help. Losing Cortland Sutton did not help. I think we're all excited about the Denver offense. I'll speak for myself. I'm excited about the Denver offense. I hope you guys are as well. But if the quarterback situation does improve, then things could be in a really good spot. And Tera backs that up by taking Jerry Jeudy with her pick in the 7th round. Quarterbacks starting to come off the board. Samantha, you took Justin Herbert. I'll backtrack here. Ben, maybe you can help me out and tell me what the order of the quarterbacks was and when Herbert, what number he was in terms of the quarterbacks coming off the board. But are you guys more inclined in one quarterback leagues to wait on quarterback? Are you guys going to be aggressive in drafting quarterbacks? I think this draft kind of speaks for itself a little bit in quarterbacks falling, because I didn't know that in the 5th round. I think I still saw maybe Dak Prescott was on the board at that point. But Steph, I'll start with you. How do you sort of approach the quarterback position?
Yeah, so I feel like I had to do a little bit of redemption because everyone was very upset that I didn't take a quarterback early last time I did this, but now we're all upset that I took Jamar Chase in the 4th, so you can't win this. I usually wait on a quarterback because even now I think Tannehill was still sitting there. You still, like right now we have Tom Brady still there, Rodgers still there, Tannehill, Wilson. Like there's a lot of value that falls in these drafts, so usually I will wait. I'm okay with not taking a quarterback immediately, and I usually tend to wait.
Tera, what about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same end with Steph. I tend to wait when one quarterback leads. I tend to get those running backs settled, go heavy on the wide receiver, fade tight end, and then come around with quarterback. I did actually have, I think I had Kyler and Dak queued up in the round that they were taken, just thinking that maybe they would get to me. And I did check the scoring settings. I did a little research. It's a 6-point TD. So I thought maybe I'll grab one of them. But yeah, other than that, I typically do try to wait out a little bit.
And you have a fan, Hazelnut 22. Go Tera, go Tera. All right. Samantha, you took Justin Herbert. What do you think about the second-year quarterback for the Chargers? Fantastic, amazing rookie season. How will he do in year 2?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit self-conscious now that I went so early on quarterback. I do feel like in normal drafts, I'm one of the leader drafters, but with it being 6 point per passing touchdown, and I am really excited about the Chargers offense, I thought this was a good time, just opportunity-wise, to take quarterback. It's not necessarily that I have like a very strong positional strategy. It's, how I'm building out the roster, and kind of it changes with every single draft. Like watching you guys draft is obviously so different than watching my home league draft and everything like that.
It is fascinating. I mean, I think a lot of people look at the fantasy analysts and the drafts that we do, and quarterbacks tend to fall, and they just think it's not realistic. But we're seeing, I think, more and more that, I think the casual fantasy player is letting quarterbacks fall. And as we're, seeing, like last year, for example, was another year where Aaron Rodgers was either just near the bottom of the top 12 or outside the top 12 and ended up finishing as the number 1 guy. It just happens year over year that we find one of these quarterbacks that ends up being top 5, some cases number 1, like Lamar Jackson was a couple of years ago, that just not being highly touted. Expectations are still high. We call them sleepers, we call them breakouts, but until you see it, you kind of just wait it out, and we'll see who that guy is going to be this year, if in fact there is another one of those guys this year. But it's going to be fun to see how the quarterback ADP looks, and how the casual drafts, once they start happening later on in August and early September, how those drafts reflect the quarterbacks. Now I can say it now. So I'm going to probably take a quarterback because I waited to see. I think it's always a good idea when you're on one of the ends to take a look and see who the players behind you or the fantasy managers behind you, what they have. So Dan, Dave, and Jack all had quarterbacks. So Russell Wilson's still sitting there unless one of them take Wilson. I will take, as a backup, I will take Russell Wilson as a starter. Tera, what do you think about the Seattle passing attack this year? Are we going to let Russ cook? Are they going to let Russ cook? You think it's going to be like we saw at the start of the season where he was throwing the ball over the place, or a little bit more the second half where they got too run dependent once again?
So I feel pretty positively about it. Honestly, I'm taking him in several dynasty startups, so obviously feel pretty good about it. But with the new offensive coordinator that they have coming in, I think a lot of people are thinking it's meaning that they're going to run a little bit more. And I don't think that's actually the case. I think they're going to try and, I mean, they're great at the vertical throw. They're great with DK and Lockett, but they don't, their short game has been a little weak. And I think that that's what they're really going to try and invest in, is getting those short passes for Russell Wilson. They speak highly about the tight end position and getting that more involved this year. And the drafting of, I am blanking on his name right now, Eskridge. Yes, and I think they're really going to make him somebody who can have a immediate impact this season as well, to kind of get that field in a little bit and focus on that horizontal game. So I think they're in a really good position, and I see good things for Russ.
I hope so. Like I said, I drafted him in the 8th round. So Ben, do you have the number of the quarterbacks and what they went off the board?
I just got that Herbert is number 6 off the board.
So Herbert number 6. Okay, so Russell Wilson number 7. So the guys that are left that I think a lot of people are going to look at: Jalen Hurts, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Those guys still available. We'll see how that goes. Scott Fish, our best buddy, one of the best people in the world, certainly one of the best people in the fantasy community, has a question. Do you all have very many in-person live home league drafts? So Steph, I'll let you take this one. Do you have any drafts in person with your friends, family? Do you get together? I know last year was probably a little different with COVID and all the pandemic that was happening, but typically when you do your fantasy draft, you try to do them in person.
Yeah, I only have one that's hanging on strong. So we have yet to do that yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It's still a bunch of people from high school. So it's very rare that you stay in touch with people that long. So excited for that to kick off. It's always nice when you can draft in person.
Samantha, what about you? Do you still have any in-person drafts that you do?
I've actually only ever done an in-person draft once, and it was a work draft, and I no longer work there, so no. And it was kind of a total, crazy situation. Some person threw up in the middle of the draft. So that was my only in-person draft experience. I would love to do that though. It seems like so much fun. Even doing it with the board and the actual cards, that seems like a really, really fun thing. So hopefully someone will invite me to their draft when they draft in person.
All right, you got to tell that story. Why did they throw up? Too much alcohol? What was the story there?
We were drafting in the work cafeteria, and these people just came in. They were hammered from drinking at a bar next to work, and they just came in, and this guy threw up in front of the CEO who was also drafting in our league. So it was definitely a really eventful draft.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Anytime somebody throws up, you got to call that a winning draft. So I hope he ends up winning that league to make it even more of a fun experience. Tera, what about you? Do you have any drafts that you do in person?
So I'm actually, I'm from South Carolina originally. So Samantha, I'll have to connect with you on that after this. But unfortunately, because I'm in South Carolina, my home league is in South Carolina. So they're actually all in there, and they could do in person, and then I guess just have me virtual, which would be cool. I'd be down with that. But unfortunately, no. But I'm here in Houston, Texas. And so maybe, being in the fantasy football community, I know we've got a lot of people in Texas. So maybe I'll connect with some Texas people and see how we can maybe get a live draft going.
No way, Tera. I'm in Houston.
Oh, great. Awesome.
We'll connect.
Yes.
There you go. There will be your live draft with Ben Traeger.
Awesome.
I tell this story quite a bit. So I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And the 9-year-old's now in, I think, this will be year 4, year 5 of our father-son fantasy league. And doing that draft in person was one of the best experiences of my life, just to see the kids and the 1 or 2 of them that actually did the draft themselves, but the fathers being around, it was just a very fun experience. And then I still have a couple leagues that we try to get together in person. Guys I used to play softball with, we try to get together, a bunch of old men, and have some fun. So anytime you get a chance to do live drafts, I highly encourage it, but a little difficult these days, obviously, understandably so. So just getting your drafts done at all is certainly an accomplishment. All right, let's take a look at some of your teams here, and I want to get to know a little bit more about you guys. Let our audience get to know a little bit more about you guys. So, Steph, you're on the clock, so we'll let you go last after you make your pick here. So, Tera, let's take a look at your team, and you had the 5th pick, right? No, 6th pick. 6th pick. All right. So far we're through round 9. Your team so far: Joe Burrow at quarterback. You finally pulled the trigger just now in round 9. David Montgomery and Austin Eckler at running back. Michael Thomas, Kenny Galladay, Brandon Ayuk are your wide receivers. Irv Smith, tight end. I like that pick. Damian Harris at flex. Jerry Jeudy is your only bench player, but that's a very good bench player. So
Yes.
we'll recap your team at the end. But tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your history in fantasy? How'd you get started? How'd you get to this point with the Dynasty Vipers?
Yeah, so I'm newer to the fantasy football community in terms of content creation. I've been a long-time consumer, but not someone that was putting out my own content. So I actually connected with the Dynasty Vipers earlier this year, and it's honestly been a really, really wonderful experience with them. Our primary thing that we do is our Behind the Grind series, which I know that you are well aware of, and where we talk to some of the most awesome fantasy analysts in the industry and get to know them. And then I've also been working on getting a lot of solo content out. I've been doing individual quick hitter type 3-minute videos for player profiles, helping people figure out some great ways to add depth to your dynasty roster. So very dynasty focused, but great ways to add depth to your dynasty roster, or some risky picks that you could take to give you a little bit of that upside. So that's been my primary focus, getting a lot of content out there. And then I'm very excited because I have some additional solo content going up and some regular in-season weekly series that will be coming up once we get into the season. So I'm very excited about that.
And you can follow Tera on Twitter. It's at It's Tera Time, ITSTERATIME. Very fun follow on Twitter. So make sure you check her out and check out all of her content. All right, Steph, let's take a look at your team here. You had the number 7 pick, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes I'm bad at counting, so I apologize. So your team so far, and again, we'll recap this after as the draft unfolds. You got Josh Allen at quarterback there, Chris Carson and Jonathan Taylor at running back, Will Fuller, DJ Chark, Jamar Chase at wide receiver, George Kittle at tight end, Trey Sermon at flex, and Antonio Brown, one of your wide receivers, on the bench. So tell us about yourself, how same thing, how'd you get started into fantasy and some things that you're doing now?
Yeah, I hated hearing my wide receivers read back to me a little bit. It's not sounding as nice as it sounded when I was picking. But I'm with FTN Network. I do, I, like Tera, did not have any intention of really to be doing this stuff. COVID happened, re-downloaded Twitter. I was a med student at the time, and then kind of just started putting out my own content, was writing for a Giants website, and then FTN picked me up very recently, and I've been very happy to be over there, very excited about the work that's going on.
So what was it like being a med student, and what kind of medicine were you planning to practice? What kind of doctor were you going to be?
I wanted to do emergency medicine. That was my thing, right? So I had no intentions of taking the semester off this year, and then somehow you find yourself talking about football every day. But
something different. You don't see a lot of med students going into the fantasy community, so we're happy to have you. And I'm sure at some point, if you want to get back into medicine, you still have the opportunity to do so. Correct?
Yep, for sure. Yep.
Samantha, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I did not get into fantasy until about 2015 when I started to get into football and everything. So, and for a while, it was just being a player and whatnot. I really fell in love with fantasy because of your podcast and a number of different ones, like the Pick Six podcast. I was really into that, and just realized that it was a really nice intersection of sports, which I've always loved, and math. And my degree in school was in math and biology. So it actually was like a really cool nexus of things that my brain likes. And I was working at the New York Post as the director of analytics, and just kind of started writing content for the sports section on the side. And that turned into like 600 articles. And during the pandemic, I downloaded TikTok and started to make a complete fool of myself in front of Gen Z, do all like the TikTok trends. And believe me, everyone thought I was really, really silly. So, that kind of got me sort of quote unquote noticed. And I never really thought about it being a full-time position until Action Network basically told me it could be. And it's been really, really awesome. I joined in March, and I've loved it so far. It's been, off season, obviously, so it's a little bit slower, but hopefully we're ramping up with preseason starting very soon.
I highly encourage you to check out her TikTok videos. They are very, very entertaining. You can follow Samantha at Samantha NFL. You can follow Steph at Steffi Smallls. That's with 3 L's, correct?
Correct. For Tom Brady's 3 L's. Very easy.
Steph, I backed out your pick, so you can make the pick there. I know you don't want to get the player that you were auto picked for.
Yeah.
This is Cam Akers and out for the season.
Yeah, I was what's going on?
Let's take a look at Samantha's team here just to kind of keep up with everybody's roster so far. So you got Justin Herbert, quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Chase Claypool at wide receiver, Noah Fant at tight end, Kareem Hunt as your flex, and James Conner as one of your as your only bench player so far, backup running backs. Talk about that Cardinals backfield there, Samantha. What do you think it's going to be? A lot of people excited about Chase Edmonds. It seems as if people are forgetting about James Conner. Who do you think is going to be the best running back in Arizona this year?
Yeah, I do think people are forgetting about James Conner, and there was a lot of dysfunction in the run game in Pittsburgh last season. So I think he's kind of just flown under the radar for sure in fantasy drafts. And I think he's not a guy that I'm necessarily targeting because, as you've alluded to, the Arizona backfield is a little bit messy right now. But at that value, I think he will definitely return on investment. They're going to use him. I don't think Chase Edmonds will ever be the every down back type guy. So, and especially like we've seen James Conner be used in the passing game, like I think he'll definitely return value. Like where I got him there.
Value is great, and I think anytime you get a chance to get a potential starting running back at the spot that you got him, one of your bench running backs, your fourth running back on your team, it's a pretty good situation. So kudos there to you to get James Conner. We'll see how this backfield sort of shakes out for the Arizona Cardinals.
Tera,
don't forget to hit the like button again. For every 100 likes we get, someone watching this live stream will get to participate in our next mock draft. We already had 100 likes, so we got one fan joining us in our next mock draft. Hopefully we'll get somebody else to get us to 200 likes. We'll get to 200 likes. Somebody else can join us, so we get to 300 likes, and so on. We get to have another player, fantasy player, join us in our next mock draft. Ashley has a question for us. Who is someone that you drafted in the past that ruined your season? So Samantha, you're on the clock. We'll come back to you on that one. Steph, I'll start with you. Who's someone that you drafted in the past that ruined your season that you probably will avoid moving forward in the future?
Yeah, so I have this lovely story of last year. I had a team that was Dak, Kittle, Saquon, Julio, Mixon. I got just totally obliterated. Yeah, it was not the most exciting year for me. I'm definitely going to stay away from Mixon. I think he's the one that I just can't get back there and forgive him for last year. So I had a rough year last year in some of my redraft leagues. I filled with guys, including Galladay. And Galladay is someone, even as a Giants fan, I am not fully in on as far as fantasy goes this year.
So you have a whole list.
I have a lot. I know.
That's Steph's list of players to avoid. Tera, what about you? Who is a player or some players that you're going to avoid and never draft again?
So players that I'm going to avoid for me, and I know this will be a little bit of a controversial thing, but Miles Sanders, I'm sorry, Philadelphia fans, but I hate to say it because I do believe he's very talented, but I just don't see them moving away from that from that committee. Their offseason moves and everything they did just really supports that they're not going to give Miles Sanders that full workload. And I've had him before where I was hoping that he would be a guy that I could depend on, and he just wasn't. And when I'm looking at a list of running backs and I'm getting to my RB2 and I'm looking at going with a guy like Miles Sanders or a guy like Chris Carson, who I know for sure the amount of carries, I know for sure the floor he's going to get. I love upside, but when I'm looking at that RB2 position, I want a floor. So it makes me very skeptical of Miles Sanders. To answer Ashley's question about a player that ruined my season, I had David Johnson. That one year he had the injury that took him out the entire season.
2017,
and right off the bat, that's very so I feel for those Cam Akers owners. I do have him in one league other than that, but it's rough to recover from that when your RB1 goes out the window.
Samantha, what about you? Is there anybody you're avoiding or somebody that's burned you in the past that you're not going to go back to?
I mean, I hate to say that there's someone that I would never, ever draft, but DJ Moore gave me quite the headache last season. It was like 20 fantasy points or 2 fantasy points. And obviously that was very frustrating. And you see, I can be very critical on my own team for sure. So that's not necessarily that I would never draft him, but it did leave a little bit of a scar. And Joe Mixon, I have had him in a auction keeper league for a while, and obviously spent a lot of money to keep him this season. And that didn't work out super well. I did end up winning that league, which was really nice. But still, like, my RB2 slot all season was just like a giant headache. And in a 16-team league like that, you're not getting a lot of guys off the waiver wire. So it was pretty lean. But I can't stop drafting Joe Mixon. I really do think this is his year.
Just one of the most polarizing fantasy players we're going to probably have the rest of his career until he actually delivers or continues to let us down. Hopefully it's not the latter, because
this is his year.
They'll buy him back in, but just very, very frustrating. All right, so our buddy Dave Richards is in the draft, not joining us on the show tonight. He posted a poll here. Darrell Henderson went 45th overall in our live mock draft. Too soon, too late, just right. 47.8% too soon, 40.4% just right, 11.8% too late. So again, the big news today: Cam Akers out for the season with a ruptured Achilles tendon. Darrell Henderson now becomes the lead running back for the Los Angeles Rams, and again went 45th overall in our mock draft tonight. So very big story, and hopefully something that we'll get some clarity on if the Rams are going to bring somebody in. We know Adam Schefter of ESPN reported that they're not interested in adding another running back, at least as of right now. So Xavier Jones, one of the guys to keep an eye on as a potential backup option. I got to say, you guys are killing me with these last two rounds of the wide receivers that you drafted. It started with Steph taking Gage, and then I'm just going to back up to make sure I got it all right. Darnell Mooney to Tera, Michael Gallup to Samantha, all those guys in my queue, and you guys just killed me. And then taking John Brown. Come on, John Brown in round 12. I'm round 11, excuse me. I can't quit John Brown. John Brown is just somebody I'm going to draft all the time, and unfortunately did not get him here. So good pick by you, Tera, but great pick on the last two rounds of the wide receivers. I'm going to take one of my favorite players here. It's probably going to piss off Dave Richard, but I'm going to take Adam Trautman. I'm very excited about him this year as the hopeful lead tight end for the Saints. No more Jared Cook. The quarterback situation, as we talked about earlier, still in flux. We don't know if it's going to be Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, but Trautman is somebody that I think could have that second-year breakout that we see from some young tight ends, and I'm excited about him stepping into that lead role for New Orleans. Jameis Winston will clearly be better for him. Winston has a very good track record of throwing to his tight ends, going back to his days at Florida State. But I'm excited about Trautman. He is a guy that I'll be drafting a lot of this upcoming season. I want to take a look at one other player's team in this draft, excuse me. And that's our guy, Rob Thomas, who again is our Facebook moderator. So I'm going to let our panel here sort of take a look at his team and dissect it a little bit. So again, Rob manages our Facebook, or moderates our Facebook page, which you can find on Facebook. Ben, where exactly is the address, so I'm not sending people to the wrong direction?
Facebook.com/groups/fantasy football today.
See, I would have butchered that completely. So thank you for helping me out there. So Rob's team he got the first quarterback off the board with Patrick Mahomes. He's got Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, so very good running back duo there. Tyler Lockett, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Jones are his wide receivers. He's got Tyler Higbee at tight end, Mike Davis at the flex spot, Emmanuel Sanders, T.Y. Hilton are his two wide receivers on the bench, and he has James Robinson as one reserve. So, Tera, what do you think? How's his team looking so far through the first 12 rounds?
I like it. It's some risky picks, but if it hits, it could pay off. I mean, he's got picks where the risk is that, it may not pan out, but on the upside, they've got a whole lot of upside. So if you look at Cortland Sutton, I took Jerry Jeudy. For me, that's a very interesting one in terms of which player is going sooner than the others. I know in Dynasty, it's Jeudy, and then in redraft, it's typically Sutton. But I think a lot of that depends on the quarterback situation. I know one favor, I know a lot. I would think if Drew Lock starts, that it's a Cortland Sutton situation. And then on the other end, Jerry Jeudy would benefit from Bridgewater. So, Marvin Jones could have a good connection with Trevor. Tyler Lockett, if they can just, get some consistency with him, very solid at running back. So I really like it. Maybe a surprise with Higbee at tight end. So, yeah, he's got some good upside there.
Steph, what do you think about the wide receiver situation for the Colts? T.Y. Hilton finished strong last year, but obviously disappointing. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are expecting big things this year from Michael Pittman heading into his second year. Had a good playoff performance against Buffalo. Profiles very well. Paris Campbell coming back from 2 years of injuries, and then there's the new quarterback. So What do you think about the situation there for the wide receivers in Indianapolis?
So my problem is I really need to see Carson Wentz be 2017 like everyone is hoping for. I'm still not totally bought into him making the excuses, and I think the excuses are gone, right? He's going to a roster that is very well fit to have all of that eliminated, has a O-line. I like Pittman. I think that Campbell I'm setting myself up to get hurt again with Campbell this year, but I'm going to be all in because I like the talent that he is. But a lot of this is really going to come down to Wentz, and that's why I'm a little bit higher on, Jonathan Taylor and some other guys on that team, just because I really need to see him come back and prove himself because last year was pretty brutal.
It was interesting. It was certainly interesting for the Colts. Maybe another team that's pretty fascinating to watch there. So we'll see how that works out for Rob and his team there. Samantha, what do you think about the Bills receiving situation? He took Emmanuel Sanders on his roster. We know Stephon Diggs locked and loaded. He's clearly a star. But a lot of people excited about Gabriel Davis. We'll see what happens with Cole Beasley. And then there's Emmanuel Sanders joining the team. So how do you look at the secondary wide receivers for Buffalo aside from Stephon Diggs?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's gonna be a guy, but I'm not sure who it's going to be. It's kind of maybe going to be similar to the Chiefs situation where it's like gonna be a Mecole Hardman 1 week or something, and it's gonna be a little bit frustrating as like the second guy. So I don't have a necessarily like strong lean on one of them. I do like Gabriel Davis, I think, at ADP, but in this offense, I think is going to be super high powered for sure. So that's exciting, but yeah, I'm not super sold on any of the secondary receivers.
No, Steph might agree. Steph might disagree with you there. She took Gabriel Davis with pick 138 right there. So do you feel a little differently on the Buffalo receiving corps?
I think that Josh Allen is what he is, and Gabriel Davis, I mean, they're going to pass the ball like crazy. They're not a team that doesn't do that. And I think Gabriel Davis is walking to a nice situation where, he can be a wide receiver too there. And I'm in on Gabriel Davis, especially at that value. So you get to this point, right, in the draft where I'm just going to start looking for value and who I think does have the upside. And when the options that are next to him aren't as appealing, I'd rather go with the guy I trust.
Because you did it in this draft with Josh Allen and Gabriel Davis. Obviously, It's not like, the stack people would look for with the Bills with Allen and Diggs. But is that something you sort of target, or just, if it works out, it works out? In redraft leagues, it's clearly a little bit different in best ball. It's different in a league like Scott Fishbowl where you're trying to set yourself apart. Right. But in just a half PPR redraft league, is that something you tend to target, or just kind of, if it works out, it works out? Stacking.
Yeah, Right. It's kind of how it works out. And I think also, you have to look at offenses. Now, my dog is going to get involved here. You have to look at an offense that's productive if you're going to go and stack them. So just like I did like you did with Gibbs and McLaurin, I love that move because I think we're going to see this offense be very, very productive and have guys. No one's eating targets. So I'm cool with stacking as long as it's a productive offense. Like, I'm not going to be really stacking like the Giants or Houston, but there are teams that I think can be just fine to stack.
Tera, talk about the rookie wide receivers. We saw Rondale Moore go in this round to Chris Towers, and I don't want to talk about the top three guys, which I think a lot of people are going to know with Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. I ended up taking Waddle. Steph, you took Jamar Chase. But talk to me about the next group of guys, the Rondale Moores, the Rashad Batemans, the Terrace Marshalls, Kadarius Toney. Is there one player that stands out to you that you're looking to target? Is it a group that you're just going to sort of see how it unfolds? How do you view those rookie wide receivers?
So I feel like here's where I can be, and I guess the question is perfect for this. So I can be I can be an extra homer here. I'm going to go with Amari Rodgers.
Okay.
Is someone who I think is a great value that you could get in redraft and still see production out of as a rookie. I know it's a little shaky. I think I've seen a lot of reports that Toney isn't actually going to play a lot with the first team, might be, more of a second team, more of a punt return option. Rondale Moore is someone who I think will get a good play right off the bat and probably have a good connection with Kyler. But in terms of the best situation, Amari Rodgers actually has one of them. The reason is that he actually fills fits in perfectly to a role that is completely empty right now. That's something that we have needed, or at Green Bay, we've needed for a long time. We don't have a slot receiver, and he fits so perfectly into that. And, our debate around who is actually the wide receiver too. Can it be Lazard? Can MVS step up and be that person? And there's a lot of people that are on the end of no, we need another wide receiver. And I think going out and getting Amari Rodgers for that slot position was literally perfect. It may take him a few games, maybe even 6 games to really get into it. But I think once he gets going into the season and gets into that spot regularly, he can have a high snap count and be a really good value in PPR.
Tera, I also want to ask you about a player you took in Kenneth Gainwell, another rookie. Kind of going back to your Miles Sanders stance that he's going to, be in a timeshare. Do you think Gainwell's got a chance to, play some significant snaps this season?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on brand and go with Gainwell. I think that I truly do believe that it's going to be more of a committee situation, and the upside with Gainwell versus maybe a Kerryon Johnson is that I think that they'll primarily utilize Gainwell in the pass game. I think that was probably a great deal of the intention with him. And I'm hearing good things about him. And I think he'll be able to immediately step up into that role of being someone who can be specifically a pass catching back. And so when I was looking at the running backs that were on the board and looking at who would actually get play in terms of PPR, I really think that he's the one that had the most upside right there.
We just had sticking with the rookie theme. We just had a comment that was posted there, Ben. If you want to throw it back up there about Kyle Pitts in terms of who's your favorite rookie to draft. So, Steph, I'll ask you this one: who's your favorite rookie to draft? And talk about Kyle Pitts and just what the impact he can make for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I think Kyle Pitts is going to immediately step into. I know everyone's very nervous about how they're going to spread the targets here. I think that Kyle Pitts is just going to walk right in. You'll have Ridley step up, who they were very fortunate for a while. They had 2 wide receiver ones. Ridley is fully capable of taking over that position. And then you have Gage, who I think is, this is someone that I've been drafting a lot. I think we're going to see him also step up and be able to be the wide receiver 2 very easily. I don't think that there's going to be some kind of transition or struggle with him. He's proven to very much be that. So Kyle Pitts, I mean, if he's the rookie that everyone thinks, the prospect that everyone thinks, there is no reason that this guy, that we're not going to see him, step into finishing top 5 very easily. As far as rookies go, everyone saw me take Jamar Chase. We're all very upset that I took him in the 4th, but the connection there between him and Burrow and how much they're going to end up airing the ball out. As everyone likes to say that they didn't make changes on the offensive line. They did. They added Riley Reif in free agency. They also added guys during the draft. So I think that'll be enough time and enough protection, as much as we worry so much about Burrow. But I'm very in on Jamar Chase. I think we're going to see him getting the ball very much over there.
How does Chase sort of compare to you with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd? Is it a clear cut that Chase is the number 1 guy for you? Or could it be a situation where all 3 of these guys can produce at a high level?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see all 3 of them produce at a high level. It was a little bummed when this draft pick did happen, because I did get Higgins for the first time in some dynasty leagues, was very optimistic about it. I don't feel as confident, because I think that we could see Chase be that guy that just goes in there and is the star. And but I think this is another team that's going to be a productive offense. So is it possible that another one of those guys can still produce at a wide receiver 1 level? For sure. I just don't know if that's actually going to be the case.
All right, so we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about Tyler Boyd, just because he's the one that goes last. And so anytime you get good value for a player like that and what he's able to do, I like all 3 of these guys. I think all 3 have the chance to be successful. Maybe not to, the ultimate heights that they would if there weren't the other 2 guys there, but I don't think it's a reach that you took Chase in the 4th round. I think it's reading the board, getting a guy that you want. If he goes 1 round later, okay, maybe we're talking about that's where his ADP will lie. But if you're chasing ADP, you're playing this game the wrong way. If there's a player that you like, no pun intended, I guess. If there's a player that you like, go get him. Go get Jamar Chase. So I like that pick. Samantha, I'm asking you a question that was just posted up there. So Ben, if you want to throw it back up in terms of the 3 rookie wide receivers. So Samantha, tell me about Rashad Bateman. I'm assuming it's Ronald Moore and Amari Rodgers in terms of those 3 rookie wide receivers. What do you think about them?
Long-term value, I think I like Rodgers. It's close between Rodgers and Bateman, and then probably Moore. I just think Moore is in an offense that maybe is less exciting than the former 2. Bateman is in a scheme fit that I think will be really exciting immediately too. Of the three, I think he has probably the most immediate value as well, because I just think that they like to use a lot of wide receivers in Arizona. So I would probably go Rodgers, Moore, and then I just completely blanked on
Bateman, Moore, and Amari Rodgers.
Okay, sorry. I would probably go Rodgers, Bateman, and then Moore.
Yep, it's a fun group, you know. And Bateman is the one I think that's the most intriguing because talent-wise, he's probably the best of that trio. But the situation just feels like it's going to stink. You know, just being in Baltimore, and the volume is not going to be there for him. Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews are still going to, at least my opinion, lead the team in targets, and we know that what they're going to do running the ball. So could be a frustrating situation for him. But talent-wise, he's one of my favorite players, and I just wish he ended up in a different spot. All right, Ben, make the announcement.
Let's do it. We're over 200 likes. Let's get another person in the mock. Leave your Twitter handle right now. If we get to 300, we'll screw it. 2 more people will be in the mock if we get to 300 likes. But leave that Twitter handle right now. I'll DM one of you guys. We'll announce the winner in a few, but leave your Twitter handle. You'll be a winner.
I hope it's another fun Twitter handle like the last one. What was the last one again? Pig Jet Fan?
Exactly right.
Not exactly right. That was...
Oh, sorry. Pig Bird Jet Fan.
Pig Bird Jet Fan. Pig Bird Jet Fan. Can't leave out the bird there. Can't leave out the bird there. All right, I just took Amon-Ra St. Brown, and this Lions offense is going to be interesting to see how things unfold there with the lack of proven, talented, consistent wide receivers. They have some talented wide receivers, but they're just not consistent in Brashad Perryman and Tyrell Williams. I love the tight end. I love TJ Hockenson. I think he's going to be fantastic. DeAndre Swift's in a great spot. Tera, what do you think about the wide receiver core there for Detroit? And, talk about Hockenson and Swift as well.
Yeah, I was hoping you would ask me about this because I do think Amon-Ra St. Brown is an excellent pick. He fell into an excellent situation, even though he might not have been seen as kind of that top tier talent-wise, or even maybe in that top, and even in that second tier. But I really do like Tyrell Williams for his ADP. I'm very big on getting him in deeper drafts where I feel like you're getting someone. If you look back past last year, unfortunately, with the injury, he didn't get to play at all. But prior to that, he really wasn't that shaky or lacking in dependency. So with the injury being an upper body injury, I don't feel like he's going to lose a lot of that speed and quickness that he had. So I think he's somebody who, as a veteran, can be a very reliable receiver for Goff. And I think that's probably what he might be a little more geared towards with having experience with Woods and Kupp. It fits the mold better of what he's used to. So I think he might actually lean on him. I agree. Brashad Perryman, who is very talented, unfortunately, he just is severely injury prone. So there's just no realistic opportunity for him to be there throughout the entire season. And then in terms of Hockenson, I really do like him. I'm not reaching for him just because I'm not putting him in that top 3 tier. He's still not up there with me. I think he comes down there with him and Kyle Pitts. So I typically am not reaching for him. DeAndre Swift, I think, is an incredible talent. But my problem with that is that I really do believe that they're still going to be a little bit on the side of committee. And when they brought in Jamal Williams, who I obviously love, he's someone that was a red flag for me because he's someone that you are not bringing in to just fill depth spot in the bench. They were bringing him in to really contribute to the offense. So I think you're going to see a decent amount of Jamal Williams. So that concerns me a little. Detroit's not really known for workhorse running backs for, the last decade, maybe a little bit more.
Much longer since Barry Sanders.
Yeah, it's been
a long time since they had that type of guy. Swift looked like it at times last year. Hopefully he's able to build off that, but I think your analysis is pretty spot on there. And Dan Schneider just took Tyrell Williams, so not a bad flyer in the 14th round to see if he can be the best wide receiver there for the Detroit Lions. Steph, tell me a player that you're kind of planting your flag on, of somebody that you're going to draft in every league, or somebody you're going to target. Is there a specific guy that you must have leaving your drafts that you feel like this is going to be the year for that particular guy?
Yeah, the first person that comes to mind is Jonnu Smith. I'm very excited for him. I know that there's this big debate between the two of them, but Jonnu finished at like tight end 15. He has been only increasing his points per game as far as fantasy goes since he has started. And I think that we're going to see vintage Bill Belichick with 12 personnel. And it doesn't really matter to me who that quarterback is there. I think Jonnu will be the red zone king, and we're going to see a lot of production out of him.
Dave Richard taking Jonnu Smith earlier in the draft. He took him as his second tight end along with Dallas Goedert. I'm excited for Jonnu. I hope he can, prove that he's better than Hunter Henry, that Cam can lean on him. It's going to be a fun year for him. So unfortunately, Dave took your guy, so you can yell at him next time you guys are on the show together. Samantha, what about you? Is there a player that you have to have in your drafts this year?
I don't know if there's a player that I have to have, but there are people that are probably reaching for more, and Kyle Pitts is one of them. Obviously really excited about, not excited, but it definitely helps his value that Julio left. And I just think he's going to be a monster in terms of targets. And J.K. Dobbins is another guy that, I may reach a couple spots for, because I just think that the Baltimore offense is just so run first, run heavy, and with less competition. I still think Gus Edwards will have a role in that offense for sure, and he's a very high valued handcuff. But Dobbins is the guy, and I'm really excited about him this year.
He's so polarizing. It's obviously it's format, PPR versus half and non-PPRs, I think is going to sort of, sway people, I think, in how they view him. I'm excited to see if they use him more in the passing game to whatever extent. It doesn't obviously have to make him a 70 catch guy. That's not going to be realistic. And I think anybody that's looking at it and saying the 5 touchdowns from Mark Ingram 2 years ago, that's unrealistic. But he's so talented. And, Gus Edwards is going to be a problem, but I'm with you. J.K. Dobbins is a very good player, hopefully great fantasy option. So we'll see how things go for him. Tera, what about you? What was the player that you feel like you have to have in almost every draft, maybe non-Packer related?
Yeah. So for me, I won't talk about this one. I kind of pivot maybe to someone else, because for me, it's Terry McLaurin, and we talked a lot about him and his value. So I'll pivot to someone who is more of a late round value add for me. And it's John Brown. I love the situation that he's stepping into with the Raiders. When you look at what they did last year, their wide receiving core, losing Nelson Aguilar, he was the replacement for that. And a lot of people think, like, when you think back to Nelson Aguilar, he was the second leader of targets in that offense behind Waller, of course. So obviously Waller is going to retain the lead in terms of targets. But, again, for me, when I'm doing drafts, ADP is such a big part of how I structure my drafts and who I'm targeting. So when you look at the value in terms of where you're drafting him, and the fact that he can actually be the lead receiving target in terms of a wide receiver, that's huge to me. He's somebody that has had over 1,000 yards in 2019. We're going to forget 2020 because that was an injury-ridden season that he couldn't get over. But if you look back at 2019, he was just incredibly productive and reliable. So yeah, for me, he's a great steal if he can return to what he was in 2019.
I think it's a great call. Again, all great calls on these players. And like I said, you stole John Brown from me, so I'm not happy about that you did that. But I do like Terry McLaurin as well, so I'm glad to hear you say that that's a player you're looking at. Ben, what you got?
Got a winner. Ran the randomizer, and Nate_FFL is in our next mock draft. So Nate, I'll DM you on Twitter.
There you go, Nate. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us in our next mock draft. And again, thank you for everybody with all the likes. Let's take a look at our teams here, and then we can wrap this up because I'm sure everybody's got places to go. And we're getting down to the final round anyway. So let's take a look at all of our teams. We'll go in order of selections here. So Samantha, you had the 5th pick. Let's take a look at your roster. Tell us what you think. I'll read it, and then you can sort of comment on it. And we'll kind of go around the room like that. So your quarterback again, Justin Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Chase Claypool at wide receiver, Noah Fant at tight end, Kareem Hunt is your flex, Logan Thomas, Nelson Aguilar, James Conner, Phillip Lindsay, Tariq Cohen, Michael Gallup are your reserves. So what do you think about your team tonight?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well rounded in terms of risk mitigation in the different positional groups. I mean, there's definitely risk with Saquon, and there's some risk with guys like Mike Evans and Chase Claypool and that kind of 3-man wide receiver core. But overall, I think I really like the way that I built this roster. We talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire being that post-type sleeper that I think I got decent value at. DK Metcalf has the upside of being the wide receiver 1 in this league. So I'm really excited about him. Noah Fant, I think maybe I reached a little bit in terms of tight end. I wasn't sure when like the tight end run was going to be. That's always kind of like difficult to judge because I feel like there always is one, but like it's hard to call. I kind of got a little bit messed up from that in the Scott Fish Bowl last year. So maybe reached a little bit there, but I like Kareem Hunt a lot, especially in PPR formats. And I mean, my bench has some guys that are, have the opportunity to definitely go off. Tariq Cohen's a guy that I've definitely been targeting in PPR formats. Definitely think he can contribute. Sorry, guys, I'm on the clock.
No worries.
Let's see. Who do I take? I gotta take a defense. All right. We're going Colts. Sorry. All right. And now I have a full team.
I like your roster a lot. I think it's got a chance to be very, very successful. I'm glad we're not playing this out because I don't want to compete against that team. Tara, let's take a look at your team here as you made your final selection of Trevor Lawrence as your backup quarterback to Joe Burrow. So you got Burrow, David Montgomery, Austin Eckler, Michael Thomas, Kenny Galladay, Brandon Ayuk, Irv Smith at tight end, Damian Harris is your flex. The Bucs defense, along with John Brown, Darnell Mooney, Jerry Jeudy, Robert Tonyan, Trevor Lawrence, and Kenneth Gainwell. So not a lot of running backs on your bench, but a very good team built here. So tell us about your roster.
Yeah, so again, I love, I guess maybe I just love wide receivers. I love having depth at wide receiver. So stacking up on wide receivers is my favorite part of drafting. But yeah, for me, I feel good at running back. I feel like I've got Eckler, who has a potentially very high ceiling. I'm feeling very positive about the Chargers offense. I think he's going to have a great year. It did stop me from getting Keenan Allen because I didn't want to go running back wide receiver. I do that sometimes, but just in this situation, I didn't want to. But David Montgomery is another person that I really love as an RB2. I just think he's, got such a great floor, and even with Tariq Cohen coming back, and unfortunately for him coming back with the injury, it sounds like he's not might not be potentially ready to start the season. So I think David Montgomery is going to get a lot of play early on to showcase again that he is that guy who can be a 3-down back who's doing it all. So I really love him as a wide receiver too. We talked about Michael Thomas. Kenny Galladay, I know Steph is skeptical, but I'm here to assure you that I promise he's going to be great this season. I love him because of where you can draft him. It's showing that Ayuk is my second wide receiver in this situation, but being able to get a guy like Kenny Galladay as your wide receiver 3 is kind of crazy in terms of the value that he can add to your team if everything goes right. I personally believe that the injury might have been a little dragged out last season just because of the situation and him not really wanting to play for Detroit. So I don't think injury is a concern with him. If you look at him, I know people are a little skeptical of Daniel Jones. I do think he's going to have a better season and turn it around back to more of his rookie form. But I think he's going to have a good opportunity to connect there with Daniel Jones. He'll be the clear wide receiver 1. I think he'll be very healthy, and it's a really good situation because Jones does have good pass volume. Again, I'll keep it short. I love Brandon Ayuk. Irv Smith, I think, has a good opportunity to Tyler Conklin is going to get on the field, but I think Irv Smith is going to see a lot of targets within an offense where they do love to pass, even though they are a run-heavy team as well. They've got a good, solid, high-powered offense. Damian Harris is someone who I love as an RB3. I don't think Sony Michel is going to be that guy. We might not even see him on the team at the beginning of the season. So it's a sneaky little way to get in someone who's going to be an RB1. And if Mac Jones starts, that's incredible because, the skepticism there is with Cam Newton taking way too many of those goal line touches. And if it's Mac Jones who gets in there, maybe towards the middle of the season, it'd be excellent for Damian Harris. So again, I love the depth on my bench. I love everything. And I got to grab, I'm a Clemson alum, so I got to grab Trevor at the end there. So that's just my little happy pick right there.
I think the one thing that's great about your team here is you have options on your bench that could be good flex plays. Jerry Jeudy specifically being one, so if you need a running back to fill in, Harris goes into your running back spot. Jerry Jeudy can slot in there. You also have, Darnell Mooney is a player that I like. I'm sure you do as well. Clearly you drafted him. So I like those two picks on your bench, but very strong roster as well. And good job taking two young quarterbacks. Hopefully one of those guys stands out. And I'm sure for your case, it would be Trevor Lawrence, knowing that you are a Clemson alum. I'm sure that game was tough for you watching that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Steph, let's take a look at your roster here. Again, you had the 7th pick. And so you have Josh Allen, Chris Carson, Jonathan Taylor, Will Fuller, DJ Chark, Jamar Chase. You should feel okay about those receivers. They're not bad. George Kittle as your tight end, Trey Sermon as your flex, with Antonio Brown, Sterling Shepard, Wayne Gallman, Russell Gage, Gabriel Davis, Nico Collins, which our buddy Jacob Gibbs liked that pick as well. So another very strong team. All three of you guys did a great job here. But Steph, take us through your team.
Yeah, so obviously Josh Allen, we're all very high on. There's not much to even comment on there. I think Chris Carson's one of the more underrated players, especially with a team that's saying they're going to run more. I feel confident in him having a very solid floor with a little bit of upside. Additionally, the wide receivers took a little risk, but it's funny. I joked with Adam Rank about this on his show. If you're going to take a tight end early on, you have to be ready to take risks later on in the draft because I took Kittle at my 2nd pick. If I'm doing that, you got to go for the kill with the rest of it. Jamar Chase, kind of talked about him before. Trey Sermon and Wayne Gallman. One of them is going to be playing. They're going to run the ball a lot. Wilson is out at least till week 6. Mostert has a kind of a hard time staying healthy. So I feel very confident in both of those picks, especially having Gallman there, on the bench. The Giants, I did take their defense. I'm very high on their defense this year. It's the one thing I will compliment them very well. I think they have a fine crafted defense, especially with that secondary. They've done nothing but add more to it. So very high on them. And then Antonio Brown, Sterling Shepard, he's another one. I think his value, he's falling very far, but I think he's the clear wide receiver too after watching this team. When Judge was going to make the Tony pick, he went and called Shepard. He didn't call Slayton to say that his job was okay. So, and Russell Gage, another one, excited for the opportunity that's there for him now that Julio is out of Atlanta. And then Davis, talked about him, and Nico Collins, someone that I am snagging everywhere I can. I think he is going to just get fed targets. We love volume. So I think Nico Collins is an absolute steal at that point.
Could easily be the number 2 receiver there for the Texans. A lot of people, concerned clearly about the quarterback situation, but like you said, big opportunity and another very strong team. You guys did a great job with your rosters. You can see the full results. We'll have a story on this on CBSSports.com so everybody can read the full results and take a look at all the teams with all 12 of our drafters here. But guys, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Again, you could follow everybody here. I'll read your Twitter handles one more time. So you can follow Steph at Steffi Smallls, that's with 3 L's, STEPHIESMALLS. She's from FTN Fantasy, does a great job over there. Tera Roberts is at It's Tera Time, ITSTERATIME for the Fantasy Vipers. And Samantha Previte at Samantha NFL, SAMANTHA NFL. And she's from the Action Network. Again, check out all 3 of our guests. They do a fantastic job on their respective sites. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on our Tuesday night mock draft. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you all for all the likes. Adam Mazer will be back to clean up all of my hosting mistakes next week. And certainly check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast. But again, thank you, everybody, for watching our show tonight.